February marks an important month in the legacy of Babe Ruth. To share some of Babe Ruth's stories with us, I welcome back to the program granddaughter of Babe Ruth, Linda Ruth Tassetti. Linda, it's an honor to have you again.
Oh, it's great to talk to you again, Brian. Always.
Thanks so much for your time. Important month, February, for your grandfather. His birthday is it's always been celebrated on February 6th. Did the family celebrate his birthday when he was alive?
Well, when he was home, yeah, if he wasn't away. But a lot of times he was on the road. But my mother's was February 2nd, which is tomorrow. His is the 6th. So, yeah, it was kind of a birthday when he was home. You know, it's tough. February, he would take off for warmer weather.
Yeah, and also I read February 26, 1935, Babe Ruth was released by the Yankees. So it's really an important month in his legacy.
Yes. I was, unfortunately, 26 was a big disappointment because he really wanted to manage. But, yeah, that's true.
Now, I have so many questions to ask you, Linda. Linda, can you share the story with us on why your mom wanted to keep your grandfather's name, legacy from you, knowing what he meant to baseball?
Well, she was afraid that someone would get it into their head that she had a lot of money, and she never really saw any of Babe's money. So she was afraid. There were 6 of us, and I'm the youngest, and she thought somebody would get it in their head and kidnap us. So a lot of ball players did that. Mickey Mantle left his sons in Texas, and Pee Wee Reese used to have a bodyguards, and so everybody kind of worried about that because of Lindbergh. Lindbergh kidnapping left a lasting impression.
So she was afraid, God forbid that would happen to you.
Yeah, and any one of us. And, of course, she wouldn't have the money to get us back. So, we pretty much grew up with no baseball on the radio. My brother didn't play baseball. He played football. And even though I always felt a connection to my grandfather, even though I didn't know who he was, I wouldn't find out till 7th grade, 8th grade.
Wow. Now, the first time you stepped into Yankee Stadium, was that in 1975?
Yes, it was. And, a strange thing happened to me that I didn't know happened to everybody else, but the hair actually stood up on the back of my neck when I walked through and saw the field.
Wow. Now, so how was your experience? Were you there to watch a game, or were they celebrating Babe Ruth? It was a Babe Ruth Day?
Yeah, my mother was there for an appearance. Either it was Babe Ruth Day or for some kind of celebration. And they used to ask her to travel and appear for Babe. And by then I'd known who he was, and I used to love to watch her because she was my mom. And now she's on the field taking bows. It was kind of fun, kind of strange.
Right. Now, I also read Babe Ruth was close friends with dancer Billy Bojangles. Any stories you can share with us on Billy Bojangles and the Babe?
Oh, definitely. Bill Robinson was his name. And my mother told stories to me about he used to dance with my mother at the apartment. He was a really good friend of my grandfather's, and he ended up owning part of the Black Yankees. But he would travel with my grandfather, and if he couldn't stay in a hotel, my grandfather would not stay. He'd say, "I'll go find another place." So, of course, Bill Robinson stayed with him. Even in the 32 in the called shot, he was a guest of my grandfather's, and he stayed in the hotel because if he didn't, Babe didn't.
Well, now, as you know, the 2 biggest sports kings of the 20s was Jack Dempsey and your grandfather. Was Ruth close with Dempsey?
Very, very close. Very close. They were like best buds also. They hung together. They drank together. They partied together. And in 1925, when Babe really was out of shape and not really taking care of himself, a little too much partying, Dempsey actually said, "We're going to get you in shape, Babe," and he let Babe work with his trainer, Art McGovern, to get him back in shape. Those are all the pictures you see him with the medicine ball and in the little steam closet, and he got him in shape. And then, of course, 27 is history. When he hit his 60 home runs. So yeah, Dempsey was a very good friend of his. In fact,
there's always been speculation who was the most popular athlete of that era. Was it Ruth or Dempsey? There's always been that speculation. But, it was two different sports, as we all know.
Right, kind of apples and oranges. I think they were both the very top of their sports. But, I have a cute picture of them. They're in a hotel room having breakfast, and you see them standing up, and Babe's in back of Dempsey, and they had the same arm length. I guess that's what they were measuring. And it looks like Jack Dempsey had two heads, But it was to match their length, and they were right on the nose, the same length of their arms.
Geez, now, Linda, historians know that Ruth, helped the Negro Leagues. I also read that during the time of the Holocaust, Ruth began to really became a spokesman for that horrific time in history. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, in fact, I found that out later in my researching the history, and yes, what he did was. In those days, they were having a pro-Nazi rally in Times Square one Christmas. And in the same time, the New York Times had this big article, and they had prominent German Americans sign it. It was a petition against, the Holocaust. And so it was a big hoopla then because it was right in the middle of a pro-Nazi rally. But he did that all the time. He really, maybe because he came from nothing, that he thought it was important that you should speak up for what you think is injustice. He was a true American, the heart and soul. And so, whether it was for the Negro Leagues, why couldn't they play? In 1918, he was telling major leagues, why can't they play in the majors? They're great players. All the pitchers are coming out of the Negro Leagues. So what are you doing? So he was kind of like that guy. What are you doing? It makes sense. Why aren't you doing it? And that's how he was. And he was campaigning and trying to get from 1918 on. In fact, the first team that he played was, they used to call themselves, they were right in New Haven, the Cubans, but they were a black team, but they called themselves the Cubans. And that was the first barnstorming game that he ever did.
That's fascinating because, Ruth was more popular than the president.
Mm-hmm.
And I read stories that when he went to play in, the Washington Senators, he would visit the White House and is that true that he would eat in the White House kitchen?
He would just walk in. He would just walk in like he owned the place.
Oh, really?
He would just walk in? He goes, "Where's the prez?" And they'd tell, I said, maybe it was Hoover. They'd tell Hoover, Babe's in the kitchen. And he'd come down and have a sandwich with Babe.
Really?
That's when the White House was open. There was no guarding anything. And he'd walk in and like he owned it. Yeah. I have a picture of him on the front steps.
That's amazing. Yeah. We're speaking to granddaughter of Babe Ruth, Linda Ruth Tassetti. Linda, now I also read that you also had a career in movies and TVs. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Me in movies?
Yeah. Now, were you cast in some roles with, movies pertaining to Babe Ruth?
Oh, a little movie. This fella, nice fella, did a like a documentary on Sing Sing. So he dressed me. The warden's wife was very kind to the inmates and taught them to read and stuff like that. So they dressed me up as the wife, and I'm there with the prisoners, and I have a smile on my face because we were kind of playing a joke. I had the guy reading, like I was teaching him to read, and it's silent. So he's doing these sonnets to, these Hamlet, and I was laughing. Yeah, it was funny. I had a good time with the guys, but it was just a little short thing. But I'm gonna tell you what happened.
Yeah.
It was 90 degrees, and we were filming at this little jail. Well, they told me to put on a winter coat because it was winter. They wanted it to be kind of cold. But the problem was a wasp had flown under my dress. So I'm sitting in this car, and I feel a poking like this straw. And good thing I'm not allergic. When I took off my clothes, I was stung from under my arm all the way down my side. This wasp must just had a ball. But it didn't feel that bad, see, because you got to get the shot, so you can't do anything. You just do what you got to do to get the shot. It really was fun. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't do it on a daily basis, but I had fun.
Yeah, now let me ask you this, Linda. What would you say was your grandfather's most prominent accomplishment? Which accomplishment was Babe Ruth most proud of?
Well, his records, he was proud of the 29 and two-thirds scoreless pitched innings in a World Series. That was his favorite record that he did. He loved pitching. In fact, if he had been left alone, he would have been a pitcher all his life because he loved pitching more than hitting. And he said, striking a slugger out was easy, when he was pitching. And I guess that would have been his favorite record. The best, I think that the best, looking back as far as we are, his contribution was how he was with people. He did this great accomplishment that no one had ever seen coming. I mean, it was out of the blueprint. Nobody knew the home run. It was base to base. And it's what he did with it. He spread his money around. He was generous. He was generous with the players. He was generous with charities. He made time for himself. In fact, even he had more time away from the family than with his own family because he thought it was his responsibility and he wanted to help. See, he told the kids when he left St. Mary's, each set of kids, he went to their dinner. And he stood up at a podium and said, I'm going to do good for you. When I leave this home, I'm going to do good for you. And he followed through.
It's amazing. Linda, if I may ask you, I was browsing on the internet and I reached this website. It's called historychannel.com, and it mentions 10 things that we may not know about your grandfather. If I may ask you a few questions.
Oh, of course. Go ahead, Brian. You can ask me anything.
Okay. He served jail time for being a reckless driver?
I hate to admit that, but yes. He knew one gear since a kid. When he first put on a bicycle, he was just as bad. Motorcycle. He knew one gear, go. And he went like a bat out of heck. And I got to tell you, I'm surprised he didn't kill more people. He rolled more cars. I don't know. He got caught between two cable cars, believe it or not. Front and back, he got locked right between two. And he got him and the girl got out without a scratch. He had a busy guardian angel, I'm telling you.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What about this? His father died in a fight with a family member. Yeah,
I think it was his second wife, because Babe's wife, Babe's mom had passed away. She got in a fight with her brother-in-law, and he did. He tried to break up the fight, and he didn't own. Well, yeah, maybe he did own the bar. That's the only bar he ever owned. Babe bought it for him when he was playing with Boston. And what happened was he tried to separate these guys, and he fell and hit his head on the curb. It hit, how you just fall just right on your temple, and it killed him. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was trying to separate his brother-in-law from who he was fighting with. Yeah.
Amazing. How about Ruth believed he was a year older than he really was for most of his life?
Well, yeah, they say on the History Channel he found out when he went to Japan. That wasn't true. In 1920, him and Helen went to Havana, Cuba. And that's when he found out not only was he a year off, but he was also a day. He celebrated his birthday on February 7th. His birthday is really February 6th. So they found, records in 1895, records weren't exactly the most accurate things walking, you know what I mean? Written.
Right.
So, yeah, he found, but that was in 1920 when he went to Cuba. And the short story on that was he found High and man, the Cubans took him for everything he was worth. It's a good thing his first wife, Helen, kept some money aside for them to get home. That's how bad the gambling got him. Yeah.
Man, what about his first wife died under mysterious circumstances? It
can't be proven. They did 2 autopsies on her, but it was a new house. It was a brand new house that she built, and she was living with Kinder. My grandfather and Helen was separated. So she wasn't the wife of Kinder, but for let's say, protocol, neighbors, she was Mrs. Kinder, but she wasn't married to him. And she did have a problem with substance abuse, Helen did. She used to have nervous breakdowns. And I guess it was in the family, the mental problems. So what happened was, supposedly there was an electrical fire in this brand new house, and they saw a black sedan leaving right out after the flames. So she was found trying to crawl what she thought was the front door, and it turned out to be the bathroom. So they found her on the floor. And so, yeah, we think it's mysterious. They think it's mysterious. But Babe said, just leave her alone, leave her in peace. It doesn't matter what happened to her, she's gone. And so that's what, he was really broken up about that. Don't forget, he married her when he was 19, she was 16. It really was a love story. It's just they were 2 different people. He liked the party, she wanted to be home on the farm in front of a fire. And he was never going to be that guy, He was never going to be. He was a limelight guy. That's just the way it was. But
and my last question for you on this list, he was not an orphan.
Oh, gosh, no. He was at an orphanage / reformatory / trade school. What happened was he had ADHD, which would have been undiagnosed. And he would never sleep. He had ants in his pants, throwing rotten fruit at the truck drivers to stealing money out of the cash register for kids for ice cream. And I have a brother that was ADHD and woke me up every night at 3 o'clock in the morning to play with him because he couldn't sleep. I was a very nervous child, but, we used to put those Rat Fink models together all night. I got to play with the Erectus set all night, so I didn't say anything. So Babe was ADHD, so he couldn't sleep. So he used to, get into trouble and go watch the trains. When they came in, he'd be, having breakfast or a piece of whatever he had, and he'd be sitting at the railroad watching the trains come in. So, yeah, that's why he broke curfew, and that's why he had a voracious appetite, and also the high focus on baseball, which all goes with ADHD.
We're talking to Linda Ruth Tassetti, granddaughter of Babe Ruth. Linda, I read in 1994, if you could tell us the story, Senators pitcher Paul Hopkins went to visit the Ruth Monument at Yankee Stadium, and I believe you were with him, and the security guard would not let you in. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. That was so funny. I don't know. Sometimes you wonder why you say things or do things. My husband was a bartender at Chester Inn at the time, and he met Paul Hopkins. And so I said, I want to talk to this gentleman. He knew Babe. They're getting far and few between. So I told baseball about him, the Hall of Fame, and I told everybody, hey, look who I found. You might want to talk to this man. And sure enough, they wanted to do an interview at Yankee Stadium, and it was rainy, and the Yankees weren't playing. So I said to Paul, I said, did you ever see the monument? And he goes, no. And I said, you know what? Neither have I. I've never seen my grandfather's monument. So we walked out there, and, of course, everything's locked up, so the caretaker was doing whatever he was doing. And I said, because by then they had him behind fences, and I said, can you let me in? And he said, well, why should I let you in? I said, well, I'm Babe Ruth's granddaughter. So he looked at me. I said, I've never seen his monument. He says, how do I know you're Babe Ruth's granddaughter? So I pointed at my cheek and smiled. And he unlocked it. And I walked in, and Paul and I were in the park, and then the back doors were open. So I said, what do you think? It's better to, say I'm sorry than ask permission. You know what I mean? Apologize. So we actually walked down the field to the pitcher's mound with Paul, me and my husband, and he was telling us what it was like when he pitched to Babe, who was the first guy as a rookie he ever pitched to. Talk about shaking in your boots. And he was telling us about the stadium and how it changed. It was really like, I got to stay in this moment. It was kind of cool. Very, very, very cool.
That's a historic moment. It's amazing.
Oh,
now, I saw a picture. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Brian. I'm sorry.
I saw a picture of you in the Spokane Indians dugout. Is it true the Spokane Indians heard you were in town and invited you to the field?
Yep, I was there for the Hutton Settlement, which is an orphanage that this man started 100 years ago, and it's still run beautifully. Oh, you have to see these kids and how they've launched senators and kids that came out of this orphanage are senators and doctors and lawyers, and it's a marvelous. I tell anybody that's down in Spokane, to visit it. But they invited me to an A ball game. It was A baseball. And so I said, sure, And so I was signing pictures and saying hello, and I threw a ball out, and I was in the dugout. So I'm kidding around with the guys, and they're showing me this thing. I didn't know what it was then, but they were teaching me how to dab. And it was... Yeah, they were teaching me how to do the dab. How you do your high five and then you bend with your arm out. Did you see that?
That's a first.
So that picture you see of me laughing and his hands are out, I said, what are you doing? He said, oh, and he's teaching me how to do the dab. It was fun.
I bet you're a pro. You picked it up quickly.
Yeah. Well, I said, what are you doing? And he said, no, just let. Yeah, it was fun. We were laughing. The dugout. We were hysterical. And then he wanted to show me the floss where they put the. I said, no, my hips don't do that. I can't do that. I can't do the floss. But we were just having a good time. He said, Babe, I don't know. Babe, you say Babe Ruth, everybody smiles. We have a good time. The name is magic, Brian. It really, really is.
Like I told you, the most famous name, I think, famous name in American history. I have a minute left, Linda. I want to ask you, any new projects you're working on? What's going on in the life of Linda Ruth Tassetti?
Well, I'm still working on my book, and it's not going to be this year, but it's going to be definitely the year after. I want to get it exactly right, and I've learned some amazing things that people really don't know about my grandfather. Everybody thinks they know, and it's like a thimble full of who he really was. So I decided I had a chance to talk to some people before they left us, and some, believe it or not, I found in articles in the paper that are amazing. I have this friend of mine, Bruce Orzer, who does all this research for me, and he's amazing. He's amazing. He's even grafted every over 500-foot home run that Babe did.
Wow.
He actually grafted them out. Yeah, he's an amazing man. He's an amazing man. And I don't know where I'd be without him, because I've got scads of articles. I've got my own archive, and that's because of him. He's wondrous. He really is. They send me these gifts. See, Babe attracts the best of all. You know what I mean? They really, if I need help, all I have to do is say, hey, and there's somebody in line to say, I'll help you. It's really, I'm gifted. I'm gifted that way.
And Linda, when do you think this book will be finished, and when do you think it'll be out?
Well, I was hoping this year, but the man who's helping me write it, he's a professor at NYU, he said, not this year, Linda. Probably next year. And I am writing like the Diggins. It's harder than you think, writing a book. I thought, okay, I could do this. I'm going to tell you, it's not so easy. It really is tough.
But, you'll accomplish it, and I'm sure it'll be a success. And they're telling me I have 30 seconds left. So, listen, I really appreciate your time. You've been very generous with your time.
Oh, my pleasure, Brian. And, yeah, we still have to get together for coffee one of these days.
Yes, we have to meet in Starbucks. It's on me.
There we go. Now, you're on the way real fast. You're on the West Coast?
I'm in Connecticut. I'm in Connecticut.
Oh, well, I'm in Connecticut, too. Yeah, we'll definitely have to meet for coffee at Starbucks.
Definitely. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your time.
Oh, you're welcome, Brian. Anytime.
And happy birthday to the Babe.
Definitely. I think it's, oh, my God, he's 100 and, oh, my God, I have to do the arithmetic.
125. I think it's 125.
Yeah.
Thanks so much,
still
Linda.
Indoors.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was Linda Ruth Tassetti, granddaughter of the icon, Babe Ruth. Until next week, happy collecting to all.